Have you ever wondered why, in a world more connected than ever, so many of us still feel deeply alone? Why endless scrolling, constant achievements, and digital applause never seem to fill the quiet emptiness inside? This is not just your struggle, it's the silent crisis of our age. And to understand it, we need to confront an idea as unsettling as it is necessary: nihilism. Stay with me, because what we're about to explore is not just philosophy, it's a mirror held up to our modern lives. And perhaps a way to reclaim meaning in a world that feels increasingly hollow. Imagine standing in the middle of a crowded city. Neon lights flicker above your head, advertisements scream promises of happiness, and your phone buzzes with endless notifications. Yet beneath all this noise, there is a quiet emptiness. Many people today feel it, a void that lingers despite progress, comfort, and technological wonders. This emptiness is not about poverty or survival. It is about meaning. For centuries, humans believed life had a built-in purpose guided by religion, tradition, or community. You were born into a story larger than yourself. But in the modern world, those grand narratives are fading. We're told we are free to choose our own path. At first, this sounds liberating. Yet freedom without direction often feels like drifting in an endless ocean with no compass, no land in sight. This is where nihilism creeps in. Nihilism is not just a philosophy written in books. It is a feeling that seeps into everyday life. It whispers that nothing truly matters, that achievements are illusions, that meaning is fragile and temporary. For some, it is terrifying. For others, strangely comforting. But for most, it is a silent anxiety that follows them in the background. Consider social media. It was designed to connect us, but often it magnifies our sense of isolation. Every scroll presents a curated highlight reel of other people's lives: success, beauty, travel, love. We compare ourselves endlessly, measuring our worth against a false standard. And when the dopamine fades, we are left with the same question: if everyone else seems happy, why do I still feel so empty? Gen Z in particular lives at the center of this paradox. They are more connected than any generation in history, yet they report higher levels of anxiety, depression, and existential doubt. Surrounded by information, yet unsure what is true, courage to follow your passion, yet uncertain what passion even means. The modern world gives them tools but not direction, speed but not purpose. The irony is that material progress has not erased the most ancient human struggle: the search for meaning. In fact, the more comfortable and advanced life becomes, the more visible the void feels. When survival is no longer the problem, existence itself becomes the question. And so we return to nihilism, not as an abstract idea, but as the lived reality of millions. But perhaps this void is not only a threat. Perhaps it is also an invitation. The absence of given meaning can feel like a collapse, but it can also be the space where we build something new. To understand this possibility, we must first confront nihilism honestly. We must ask, why does life feel empty, and what lies beyond that emptiness? We live in an age that worships achievement. From a young age, we are told to aim higher, to outwork others, to collect titles, promotions, and milestones. Success has become the modern altar at which people sacrifice their time, health, and often their sense of self. Yet strangely, the more we achieve, the more hollow it sometimes feels. The finish line keeps moving, and the applause never lasts long enough. Think about the moment you reach a long-awaited goal. It's a new job, a degree, a promotion, or perhaps even going viral on social media. The excitement is real, but it fades quickly, replaced by an unsettling silence. You thought the achievement would bring lasting fulfillment, yet it slips through your fingers like sand. This is the cycle of modern ambition: desire, pursuit, victory, emptiness, repeat. Psychologists call this the hedonic treadmill. No matter how much progress we make, our sense of satisfaction resets, pushing us to chase the next reward. It is an endless race with no final destination. And while ambition is not inherently bad, the treadmill becomes a trap when we mistake achievements for meaning. We confuse temporary excitement with lasting purpose. This is why many people today feel the paradox of success. They have what their parents once dreamed of: comfort, education, opportunities, yet they still feel restless. The world told them that happiness was on the other side of achievement. But when they arrived, they discovered only more questions. The modern obsession with achievement often leaves us emptier than before. Social media intensifies this illusion. Every day we see others announcing accomplishments, graduations, weddings, new businesses, personal transformations. We scroll, compare, and feel left behind, as if life is a competition we are losing. But what if the problem is not that we are behind, but that the race itself is meaningless? If the scoreboard doesn't measure fulfillment, then why do we continue to play the game? This realization is the beating heart of nihilism. If achievements are hollow, if applause fades, and if progress never brings peace, then what remains? The danger here is despair, the feeling that life itself is a cruel trick. But hidden within this despair is also a profound truth. Meaning cannot be outsourced to trophies or titles. It must come from something deeper, something that cannot be taken away. Perhaps the emptiness we feel after achievement is not proof that life is meaningless, but a sign that we are searching in the wrong places. Maybe the void is not a punishment, but a compass pointing us away from shallow victories and toward a meaning we have yet to uncover. To see this, we must go beyond the illusion of success and ask a harder question. What kind of life would still feel worth living, even without applause? In the past, identity was simple. You were defined by your family, your village, your faith, or your role in society. The story was already written for you, and whether you liked it or not, you belonged to something greater. But in the modern world, the script has been erased. We are told to invent ourselves, to design an identity from scratch, to be whoever we want to be. At first, this sounds empowering. Yet when every path is open, we are haunted by the fear of choosing the wrong one. This freedom of identity becomes a heavy burden. If you can be anything, then why are you not everything? Why haven't you become the person you dreamed of, or the person the world celebrates? The modern self is trapped between infinite possibility and the crushing pressure of expectation. The result is often paralysis, a quiet despair hidden behind curated smiles and filtered photos. Social media has transformed identity into performance. We no longer just live, we broadcast. Every post, every story, every caption becomes part of a carefully edited version of ourselves. And yet, the more we construct this digital persona, the more disconnected we feel from who we really are. We begin to wonder, am I living my life, or am I just performing it for others? This disconnection feeds the crisis of authenticity. It's the ancient question, who am I? It's returned. But now it echoes louder than ever. When likes and followers dictate value, when comparison becomes endless, when authenticity is traded for attention, the self begins to dissolve. What remains is a hollow image, beautiful on the surface, fragile within. Gen Z, raised in this digital theater, carries the weight of this identity crisis more heavily than most. They are told to be authentic, but also to build a personal brand. To follow their passion, but also to monetize it. To connect with the world, but also to protect their mental health from the world's noise. The contradictions are exhausting, and the search for identity becomes a battlefield. Philosophy tells us that identity is not fixed, it is fluid, evolving, shaped by experience and choice. But in a world that demands instant clarity, this natural uncertainty feels unbearable. The space to grow, to experiment, to fail, is shrinking under the pressure of constant visibility. We are expected to know who we are before we've even had the time to discover it, and so the void deepens. Not only do we question the meaning of life, but also the meaning of ourselves. Perhaps this is why nihilism feels so close to home today. It is not just about the universe being meaningless. It is about waking up every day unsure if you are real in the first place. Yet within this crisis of identity lies a hidden doorway. If the self can be shaped, then perhaps it can also be reclaimed, rebuilt, and lived authentically once more. Modern life is defined by choice. We can choose what to study, where to live, who to love, what to believe, and even who we want to appear as online. On the surface, this abundance of options feels like freedom, the dream of generations before us. But beneath it lies a paradox. The more choices we have, the heavier the burden becomes. Every decision carries the shadow of regret, and every path not taken becomes a ghost that lingers in our minds. Psychologists call this the paradox of choice. Too few options feel oppressive, but too many create anxiety. We scroll endlessly through streaming platforms, unable to pick a movie. We swipe through faces on dating apps, unsure if we should commit. We hesitate in front of doors that once would have been chosen for us, paralyzed not by lack of freedom, but by too much of it. And when we finally choose, we wonder if a better option was left behind. This constant uncertainty erodes peace of mind. In a world of infinite possibilities, how can we ever be sure we chose correctly? The job, the partner, the city, the lifestyle, each choice becomes a question mark. Instead of living fully in the path we take, we are haunted by the roads we abandoned. The result is a quiet restlessness, a subtle dissatisfaction that no achievement or possession can cure. Social media intensifies this restlessness by magnifying the lives we didn't choose. Every scroll becomes a reminder of the careers we could have pursued, the adventures we could have taken, the versions of ourselves that exist only in imagination. We are not only comparing ourselves to others, we are comparing ourselves to countless alternate selves that will never exist. This is not freedom. It is a prison built from possibilities. Nihilism thrives in this environment. When every choice feels overwhelming and every outcome feels unsatisfying, the idea that nothing matters becomes a tempting escape. Why bother choosing at all if meaning itself is an illusion? For many, this thought doesn't arrive as a dramatic revelation, but as a quiet surrender, a background hum that numbs desire and ambition. Yet hidden in this despair is a strange kind of clarity. If no choice is perfect, then perhaps we are free to choose without fear of perfection. If no path guarantees meaning, then perhaps meaning must be created along the way. The burden of infinite choice transforms into the possibility of intentional living, not waiting for the right option, but shaping purpose within whichever path we dare to walk. The void of modern choice is real, and it is heavy. But it is also a reminder that meaning is not found in the options themselves, it is found in how we inhabit them. The courage to choose, to live fully in one decision, may be the first step toward building a life that feels authentic. Even in a world overflowing with endless alternatives, we live in an age of constant noise. Notifications, headlines, ads, and endless streams of content fight for our attention every second of the day. The modern world has mastered the art of distraction. Silence has become rare, stillness almost impossible. And yet, without silence, we lose the space to ask the oldest human questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What truly matters? This saturation of noise doesn't only steal our time, it erodes our inner world. When every quiet moment is filled with scrolling, binge-watching, or background chatter, we forget how to sit with ourselves. We fear boredom, we resist stillness, and we treat solitude as something to escape from. But in doing so, we also escape the very possibility of meaning. For meaning often appears in silence, in reflection, in the courage to face the emptiness directly. Nihilism grows stronger in this environment because noise disguises itself as purpose. The busier we feel, the more important we think we are. But busyness is not the same as meaning. A crowded calendar or a buzzing phone can make us feel alive for a moment, yet deep down we know. Distraction cannot fill the void, it only hides it. Gen Z and millennials live in this paradox more intensely than anyone before them. Technology has made life faster, louder, and more connected. But it has also fragmented attention to the point where deep reflection feels unnatural. Instead of asking, "What do I believe?" we ask, "What should I post?" Instead of sitting in silence, we reach for another video, another song, another feed. And when the screen goes dark, the silence we fear comes rushing back, sharper than ever. Philosophers throughout history have warned of this danger. Kierkegaard once wrote that the greatest hazard of all, losing oneself, can occur very quietly in the world, as if it were nothing at all. Today, that hazard arrives not with catastrophe, but with constant distraction. We lose ourselves not in tragedy, but in the endless scroll. Yet silence, though frightening, holds power. It strips away the noise, the illusions, the false stories we tell ourselves. It leaves us face to face with the void, but also with the possibility of discovery. Silence reminds us that meaning is not something handed to us by algorithms or trends. It is something we must confront, create, and nurture from within. Perhaps this is why the modern soul feels so restless. We crave meaning, yet we drown it in noise. We long for clarity, yet we flee from the silence that reveals it. The void remains, not because it cannot be filled, but because we rarely give ourselves the stillness to face it. And maybe, just maybe, the first step toward healing the emptiness of modern life is not adding more noise, but learning how to listen to the quiet. When the noise fades and the silence finally arrives, many people feel not peace, but fear. The emptiness stares back at us, and for some, it is unbearable. This is the moment when nihilism reveals its darkest face. If nothing matters, if life has no built-in meaning, then why keep going? This temptation of despair is subtle but powerful, and it touches more lives than we often admit. Despair is not always loud, doesn't always arrive in a dramatic collapse. Sometimes it shows up as quiet exhaustion, as the sense that every effort is pointless, that every day is just another repetition of the last. It can disguise itself as cynicism, as humor, as numbness. It can live in the smile of someone who seems fine, yet deep down feels disconnected from everything. This temptation grows in a culture that prizes constant positivity. We are told to stay happy, to think positive, to smile for the camera, even when we feel broken inside. But when despair is hidden, it grows stronger in the shadows. We begin to believe we are alone in our struggle, when in reality, the crisis of meaning is one of the most universal experiences of our time. Philosophy has long wrestled with this tension. Friedrich Nietzsche described nihilism as the great danger of modern life, the collapse of old values without new ones to take their place. Albert Camus spoke of the absurd, the clash between our hunger for meaning and the silence of the universe. To them, despair was not something to run from, but something to confront directly. For only in facing it could we discover a deeper strength. In a way, despair is an invitation. It forces us to question the illusions we cling to. It tears down the false comfort of shallow goals, hollow achievements, and endless distractions. And though painful, this tearing down can also be a clearing a space where something more authentic might begin. Despair does not have to be the end. It can be the beginning of something truer. The risk, of course, is giving in, completely letting despair consume us until nothing feels possible. But there is another path. To look at the void, acknowledge its presence, and still choose to live. To say, yes, life may lack predetermined meaning, but I can still create my own. This is not denial. It is defiance. It is the courage to live even when certainty is gone. Perhaps this is the hidden gift of despair. It strips life to its barest form, leaving only the raw choice, to surrender or to continue. And in choosing to continue, even without guarantees, we discover something profound. That meaning is not found waiting for us in the universe. It is forged by the way we live, the way we love, and the way we endure. If nihilism tells us that life has no inherent meaning, then the question becomes, what do we do with this freedom? For many, the first reaction is despair, but looked at differently. The absence of predetermined meaning is not a curse, is an opening. It means the story of your life is unwritten, and you are free to become its author. Meaning does not fall from the sky. It is not gifted by technology, nor handed down by society. It emerges in the act of living itself in the choices we make, the relationships we nurture, the struggles we embrace. Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of the Holocaust, once said, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how." Meaning, then, is not about the universe giving us answers, but about us daring to create them. This creation of meaning often begins in small things. Conversation with someone who truly listens. The discipline of working toward a goal that matters to you, even if no one else applauds. The courage to care for others when cynicism tells you not to. These acts may seem small, but they build a life that feels real, a life anchored, not in illusions, but in authenticity. Ironically, it is often through struggle, not comfort, that meaning becomes most visible. Challenges strip away the superficial and force us to ask what truly matters. Pain, loss, and failure can become fertile ground for resilience, empathy, and wisdom. The void may never disappear, but it can be transformed into the soil where new purpose takes root. Community also plays a vital role. When meaning feels distant, connecting with others can remind us that we are not alone in our search. Shared struggles, honest conversations, and collective action create a sense of belonging that no achievement or possession can replace. In a world obsessed with individual success, rediscovering community may be one of the most powerful antidotes to emptiness. To live with meaning is not to escape nihilism, but to stand in its shadow and still choose. Accept that the universe may be silent, but to answer it with your own voice. This act of defiance of creating, loving, and enduring despite the void is perhaps the most human thing we can do. And so, the emptiness of modern life, rather than being a dead end, can become the beginning of something deeper. When we stop expecting meaning to be given, we realize it is ours to build. The void will always remain, but within it lies the space for a life shaped not by illusions, but by courage, authenticity, and the quiet act of choosing to live fully. In the midst of all our searches for meaning, searches that often feel abstract and philosophical, the answer often arrives in something simple: another human being. In an era flooded with screens, notifications, and digital conversations, we often forget that the essence of existence is connection, not just formal relationships, but the shared experiences of laughter, sorrow, fear, and dreams. Nihilism tells us that everything is empty. But in the gaze of someone who truly sees us as we are, that emptiness begins to crack. The warmth of a friend who listens without judgment, or the touch of a hand reminding us that we do not walk alone, can be the most powerful antidote to the void. Love, in all its forms, romantic friendship, even the affection of a child for a parent, is not just an emotion. It is the recognition that our existence intersects with others, that we are not isolated beings. When Nietzsche spoke of the collapse of old values, he also hinted at the freedom to create new ones. And one of the strongest foundations for those new values is love. Even though the modern world teaches us to chase external validation, true love frees us from the game of comparison. It gives us space to be ourselves without the mask. Yet, love also carries vulnerability. To truly connect, we must dare to open our wounds, admit our fears, and allow others to see our imperfections. This is where many give up. It is easier to live in digital isolation with shallow, fleeting connections than to face the risk of heartbreak or betrayal. But it is precisely in the courage to be wounded that we find the depth that makes life feel real. Without that, we are trapped in a simulation, in interactions that appear full on the surface, but are hollow within. Existentialist philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir emphasized that we are beings who fundamentally need the other to reflect who we are. Our identity is not built in a vacuum. It always emerges through relationships. So, even though nihilism whispers that meaning is an illusion, our daily experiences tell us otherwise. In an embrace, in a late-night conversation, or even in a small laugh that means nothing to the world, we feel that life is not just about filling the void, but about sharing space within it. In today's increasingly individualistic world, finding and nurturing genuine connection is an act of resistance. We resist the culture of speed with the willingness to be fully present. We resist emptiness with the courage to love without rational justification. And though there is no guarantee that love will last forever, it remains one of the most profoundly human experiences that gives us a reason to rise each morning. Because in the end, behind all the big questions about the meaning of life, perhaps the simplest answer is this: we live to find one another. When the void of modern life feels unbearable, many discover that creation itself becomes the answer. To create is to rebel against nothingness, to carve out meaning where none seems to exist. Whether it is painting, writing, building a business, or even nurturing a garden, the act of bringing something new into existence declares, "I was here, and I left a mark." Nihilism whispers that all things fade, but creativity responds with defiance. It accepts impermanence while still choosing to build, knowing that the process of creating gives shape to the formless and makes life bearable. The beauty of creativity lies not only in its outcome, but in the struggle it demands. There is discipline in returning to the blank page, persistence in picking up the pieces after failure, and humility in realizing that mastery is a lifelong pursuit. These struggles, often dismissed as suffering, are what anchor us to reality. They remind us that meaning is not something handed down from the heavens. It is forged in the fire of effort. When we wrestle with resistance and emerge with something that never existed before, we prove to ourselves that the void is not absolute. Purpose emerges naturally from this struggle. Unlike the artificial goals of likes, followers, or superficial success, the purpose found in creation is internal and enduring. It is the joy of shaping a song that moves even one listener, the satisfaction of solving a problem that makes life easier for others, or the quiet pride in seeing growth where there was once emptiness. These moments, though small in the grand scale of the universe, are vast in the human heart. They remind us that we are not just passive observers drifting through existence, we are active participants shaping it. Even the failures that come with creation carry their own meaning. To try and fail is to affirm that you are alive, engaged, and daring enough to confront the void head-on. Failure refines you, teaches you, and sometimes reveals a direction you never would have found otherwise. In this sense, the void is not just an enemy to be fought, but a canvas on which your resilience is painted. Without emptiness, there would be no space for growth. Without silence, there would be no music. Existentialist thinkers like Albert Camus argued that life's absurdity should not lead us to despair, but to defiance. His vision of Sisyphus endlessly pushing the boulder uphill is not a tragedy, but a metaphor for dignity. Even in futility, there is meaning in the act of pushing. Our own struggles mirror this myth. Every project we pursue, every dream we chase, is another push against the inevitable void. Yet it is precisely in that pushing that we feel alive. In the end, creation and struggle are not solutions that erase nihilism, but companions that make it survivable. They remind us that while we cannot escape impermanence, we can choose how to dance within it. To create is to declare, "Life may be fleeting, but I will not pass through it silently." And that declaration, however brief, transforms emptiness into something profound. In the search for meaning, there comes a point where human effort through relationships, success, or even creativity feels insufficient. It is here that many turn toward the transcendent. Spirituality, whether grounded in religion, meditation, or simply the awe of standing under a starlit sky, offers something that nihilism cannot destroy, a sense of belonging to something greater than the self. When life feels empty, spirituality reminds us that perhaps the void is not a curse, but a doorway and invitation to step beyond the limits of ego and glimpse the infinite. Transcendence does not always arrive with dogma or doctrine. For some, it is the silence of prayer. For others, the rhythm of breath and meditation. It can even appear in the quiet wonder of observing nature, when the vastness of the ocean or the majesty of the mountains makes us feel both small and profoundly connected. These moments dissolve the walls of isolation that modernity has built, revealing a truth often overlooked, that our existence is part of a much larger tapestry, woven long before us and continuing long after. Nihilism insists that meaning is an illusion, yet spirituality replies that meaning is not something to be found, but something to be felt. It suggests that the search for purpose is not always rational, it is experiential. To experience all gratitude or reverence is to affirm that life holds value beyond utility, beyond metrics, beyond what can be measured. It is to accept that some truths lie not in explanation, but in presence. Throughout history, humanity has leaned on spirituality to endure suffering. From the hymns sung by the oppressed, to the meditative practices of monks seeking liberation from desire, to the rituals that mark birth, death, and love, spirituality provides a language for the parts of life that reason alone cannot articulate. In a modern world obsessed with logic, efficiency, and proof, this language is still necessary. It addresses the parts of us that cannot be optimized, but only embraced. But transcendence is not an escape from reality. It is not denial of pain or distraction from emptiness. Instead, it is the courage to face the void and see in it not despair, but possibility. The void becomes a space where the divine might whisper, where silence itself is sacred, where the absence of certainty invites humility and wonder. In this light, spirituality does not erase nihilism. It reframes it, turning the emptiness into fertile ground for growth. In the end, spirituality's greatest gift is not the promise of eternal answers, but the practice of living fully in the questions. It teaches us to walk with mystery, to find peace not in control, but in surrender. And in a world where so many feel lost, that surrender can feel like a return home, an anchor in the storm of modern existence. Perhaps the most profound realization in confronting nihilism is that there is no single cure for the void. No one philosophy, no one practice, no one achievement can permanently silence the whisper that asks, "What is the point?" Yet this is not a cause for despair. It is an invitation to live more consciously. The void reminds us that meaning is not given, but created, not inherited, but chosen. And in that choice lies our freedom. When we look back at all the paths explored, relationships, creativity, struggle, transcendence, we see that each offers not a final answer, but a way of living with the questions. Relationships ground us in love and connection. Creativity allows us to shape something where nothing once stood. Struggle teaches us resilience and dignity in the face of absurdity. Transcendence opens us to mystery and awe, reminding us that the void may be larger than our fears, but also larger than our despair. Together, they weave a net strong enough to catch us when emptiness threatens to consume us. Nihilism will always shadow human life. Generations before us felt it, and generations after us will too. But rather than fearing it, we can learn to see it as a companion. Its presence strips away illusions, burns off shallow distractions, and forces us to confront what truly matters. The fact that so many feel this emptiness in the modern world may not be a sign of failure, but of awakening. Perhaps it means we are finally ready to stop chasing false promises and begin building meaning on foundations that last. This does not mean the path forward is easy. It means daring to love deeply, even knowing loss will come. It means creating despite the inevitability of decay. It means struggling without certainty of reward and embracing mystery without demanding clarity. To live with nihilism is to accept that life is fragile, fleeting, and incomplete, and still choose to live it fully. That choice is the quiet revolution of the human spirit. So when you feel the weight of emptiness pressing on you, remember, you are not alone. Every philosopher who wrestled with the void, every artist who poured their soul into their work, every individual who ever dared to hope despite despair stands beside you in this struggle. You inherit their courage, and you add your own to the chain. In your smallest acts of love, in your simplest creations, in your moments of awe, you push back against the darkness. The modern age, with all its noise and glitter, may leave us feeling hollow, but the void does not have to be our end. It can be the beginning, the blank page before the story, the silence before the music, the empty space where we choose what to build. And in that act of choosing, we discover that life may never be perfectly meaningful, but it can be deeply worth living. In the end, maybe life was never meant to hand us meaning on a silver plate. Maybe it was always about the courage to create, to love, to struggle, and to stand in awe of existence despite its emptiness. The void is real, but so is our capacity to face it, and perhaps that is enough. If this journey has stirred something in you, pause for a moment. Reflect on what gives your days weight. What keeps you moving forward even when nothing feels certain? Share it in the comments, not as an answer, but as part of a conversation we are all still learning to have. And if you found value here, consider subscribing. Not just to follow this channel, but to keep walking together in the search for meaning in a world that often feels empty. After all, none of us has to face the void alone.